Monday Morning Matters.
Perspectives from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene.
Welcome back, this is Grace.
And of course, you are with us on our second segment of today on our Monday Morning Matters. Today we are going to talk about heritage. How much do you know about heritage, Grace?
About what? Heritage about ASEAN or heritage?
I guess about ASEAN. We seldom really talk about heritage, ASEAN heritage collectively, but today we are going to talk about it with the title Preserving ASEAN Heritage is Investment for the Future. We have three guests here. One is, of course, Iqbal Abdul Rahim, Head of Corporate Responsibility Department, CIMB Foundation. And we have from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, Prabha Sundram. She's the Manager of University Community Transformation Center, as well as we have the Program Manager of AsiaEngage from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, Tunku, Putri, Afifah. Welcome to the studio, guys.
Morning.
Hello. Thank you for having us here.
So very early in the morning, I guess you guys have your coffee?
Yes.
So your coffee is local made coffee or?
ASEAN coffee.
ASEAN coffee then, yes. Nowadays everything is ASEAN. But before we talk about ASEAN heritage, you guys are going to host a very interesting program or event in the upcoming week. Can you tell us more about what event is that?
Sure. It's a CIMB Foundation initiative. We've been doing the CIMB Young ASEAN Leaders Summit for a couple of years now, and last year we decided that in the odd years we would touch on heritage and culture, and in the even years, like last year, we would touch on socio-economic development. So this year we've approached UKM to
So
join
not the
us.
other way around.
No, we had to approach them because they're so busy, you see. And we've asked them for help in developing a new program to get ASEAN students in and to teach them something about the heritage that we have as a community.
It's very rare because when we talk about ASEAN community, majority of the focus has always been ASEAN economic community. But when it comes to youth, it's always about leadership and ASEAN leadership and all that. But very seldom we actually talk about heritage and bringing young people to actually talk about heritage. So why heritage and young people? Marriage.
Well, at University Kebangsaan Malaysia, we actually have a program called the ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program, and we have actually addressed the issue of heritage last year during our program. ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program has been on since 2013, and last year's program was in Malaysia on the focus area of heritage, and we had very good response from 50 ASEAN youth, all from all 10 ASEAN countries. So I think it's a good theme. It's timely. It can bring a lot of value for young people in ASEAN, because I think a lack of awareness probably is something that all of us need to address. Lack of awareness among the youth on things like heritage issues.
So what exactly is this CIMB Young ASEAN Leaders? Is it like a new club? Everyone wants to join in under CIMB banner?
Be nice to think it was a club, but actually it's an open-ended thing, as it were. We look for 50 bright ASEAN students, and this year we're looking at students who are a little bit more aware of heritage, a little bit more into CSR, and we've sent out invitations with a lot of help from UKM, and we're looking at bringing about 50 of these kids over. Granted, there'll be 5 from Malaysia. The numbers sadly are not even. They're not 5 from every country, because the bigger nations like Indonesia and Thailand send in more applications. But it looks like we're going to get all 10 nations.
We are, yes.
Yeah, so we'll get all 10 nations in, and we'll be talking about how they can play a role in conserving their own heritage and their own culture, whether it's tangible or intangible culture.
So, sorry, when you were looking for students for this particular event, what are the requirements that you actually set for the students to apply?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have a good university on our side, so it's easy to do this.
Right.
Thank you very much.
We had a minimum requirement of a 3.5 GPA, and they have to be socially aware. And those are the qualities that I think UKM are used to looking at through
Right.
their volunteer program. So we kind of got help, a lot of help from UKM to get this going. So thank you UKM for that. So I think we've managed to get some really good students with a variety of different degrees that they're looking at, that they're studying. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be
But
fun.
how do you get countries like Laos, because we seldom really hear about countries from the Indochina area. Were they easy for you guys to select?
Well, that's the power of social media. And of course, the contacts that we have, our database is huge, and from our networks. So it's just from one social media to another, and Twitter and Facebook, and they kept on sharing and sharing. So Laos and Myanmar, we managed to get a minimum requirement at least. Yes.
If I may add to that, UKM is also a member of the ASEAN University Network. And that's a great platform of higher education institutions within ASEAN. So I think we leveraged on that platform. They helped us tremendously in spreading the word among member institutions and universities in ASEAN, since this was mainly for university students.
Yes,
and that
undergraduates.
really bumped up the numbers.
Do they need to be aware of all the different heritage in Southeast Asia?
Not
I don't
really.
think so. No, I think they need to be aware of what they have. I think if you were to ask kids in Malaysia, do you know about what your heritage is, they'll probably go like Malaysian Idol, Jacqueline Victor, great singer, but maybe in 200 years from now she might be our heritage. But for now, she's an icon. No, they don't need to know. They just need to be aware of what they have. I mean, look at what Thailand, look at what Indonesia has.
Cambodia.
Myanmar alone has Bagan. It's kind of like, it's crazy beautiful. So
That's true. Bagan is really beautiful. But this year's theme, what exactly you guys are focusing at?
Well, one of the requirements actually, apart from the CGPA 3.5 and above, and they have to study from an ASEAN university, studying in ASEAN university, and also they have to have not just an awareness of the heritage. It will be great if they had actually started a heritage program itself in their countries. So most of the applications that we received are a nice combination of tangible and intangible heritage that they are aware of. You see the culture, the sound, the music that they have, or the popular ones are all the Angkor Wats, right, from Cambodia, and environment as well. So the program will help them be focused on Heritage 101. So, and also how they can and then produce the proposal for the projects that they want to preserve heritage in their
So it
countries.
seems like you guys are really targeting the young those that really want to conserve the environment and
At
the
least have a
cultural
passion
heritage.
for it.
Yes, the passion,
An
because the
interest and
essay,
passion,
the
yeah.
essay requires them to explain further how they are planning or they are doing the heritage preservation in their countries.
But what is this year's theme? Do you guys have a specific theme?
I think this year we're going on a basic Heritage 101, as Putri says, so people get an understanding. So we get a benchmark position as well. So what we've done is we've also gone to speak to people like Rimbun Dahan, run by Hijaz and Anja Kasturi. There, they'll have a look at how private sector has managed to conserve beautiful old Malaysian houses, and then they'll get to see the spice garden, which is another part of our heritage, and then the forest trees as well, which is a garden in Rimbundahan. So there's tangible, intangible, and of course dinner is going to be your traditional Malay food with all the ulam and everything. So they get a taste of everything that Malaysia has to offer, and then after that they get to go to Malacca to have a look at the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So what we're trying to do here is to give them as much input so that they can go back and say, okay, this is how we saw it being done, maybe we can do this, or maybe we can do a better job. You know, there's always going to be something better.
Well, so basically the objectives of this event is to improve the understanding of the heritage in the ASEAN, and also especially among younger generations. Then why do you think it's very important? Because you chose this specific theme for this year, but then why is it so important for ASEAN to preserve
Is it
its
because
heritage?
we've forgotten, our
Yeah.
heritage? We focus
you-
too much on our burgers and fries.
if you've forgotten your past, you cannot move forward. It's impossible to move forward if you don't know your past, if you don't know where you've come from, if you don't know what your history is. The greatest thing about the older ASEAN people, and I'm talking about thousands of years ago, the Angkor Wat builders, no, not myself, and the geriatric side, the builders of Bagan, Angkor Wat,
Right.
all these people, I think when they made these beautiful things, they realized that one, it was a source of power, but also art is a civilizing force. You know, if you want civil society, you've got to give people beautiful things to appreciate, that they will conserve, that they will keep. And that is what builds civil society. And the best place to start is with the young people, people who are soon to start work, soon to go into employment. You know, university students are the best.
So you focus on not just, I would say,
Sensible.
not just modern heritage, but also ancient heritage, and also the environment. And so when you define heritage, seems to be very broad. But do you have an idea that you can share what exactly you mean by conserving heritage?
Like we Iqbal said just now, because it's the first time that we're introducing this program on the thematic area of heritage, and heritage itself is wide, tangible, intangible. It will just we focus on making sure that we support the exchange of learning and cross-cultural experiences among these ASEAN students. In particular, this thematic area of preserving the ASEAN heritage, and heritage is not about preserving just what Iqbal said about tangible. Because if you look at the world now, you tend to forget the language itself. It's all distorted now, and the dances, the music, right? So if we don't start from now, everything else will be lost. It'll be lost in no time, overtaken by all this modernization.
Probably we will have K-pop as our heritage in the near future.
I guess it's probably important for the young people to have a better understanding of this,
Right.
because as Iqbal was saying, it's a shared history, and there's a lot of similarities there, and a lot of differences as well. So there's some extent of having some unity in the diversity that we have within the ASEAN community here, and hopefully that will build up the ASEAN community. I mean, that is the ultimate aim, is to develop a sense of ASEAN-ness or an ASEAN identity among the youth, and we hope that that will help towards building the ASEAN community awareness.
Actually, Arlene, if you remember, after the Khmer Rouge fell, Cambodia had lost a lot of its intellectuals, a lot of its philosophers, cultural big people. What they did, one of the first things that they did, aside from changing learning into English, was they revived the Royal Cambodian Ballet. That was very important for the Cambodians, because this was their link to all the statues, the apsaras of Angkor Wat, Angkor Thom. That was a very, very important thing for them to do, and the royal family of Cambodia realized that, and they brought it back. On the other side of the coin, in Malaysia, we have wayang kulit, but the traditional stories of Ramayana are not that interesting to the young people anymore. But then we have all these smaller groups who are doing wayang kulit baru, and they're bringing in new stories. Star Wars is in it and all that. So we're all at different stages of preserving our culture and heritage, but it shouldn't stop. It should just be something that is at the back of everyone's minds for some, and actively being done by others.
Not to be too optimistic or too pessimistic, but do you think young people today in Southeast Asia, they're actually more aware about their own heritage? It's just that they don't have the platform or avenues to express themselves. What do you think about this?
I think, like everything else, like classical music, for instance, I don't think anybody here is a great fan of classical music, so we're not going to talk about it. I think with heritage, it's going to be a very small group of people who are interested, but that interest is there. That interest is there with young people. It's not going to be expressed the way we think it should be expressed, but they will express it in their own way.
They
and
will
that's
have the
fine.
Star Wars version of
That's
Wayang Kulit.
fine, because it to do a Star Wars wayang kulit requires an understanding of wayang kulit as a performance, it requires an understanding of how to make the puppets, you know, and what the rules are for making the puppets. So they're learning at the same time. So I think you will find young people who are interested in heritage, culture, preservation, all that. It's just not going to be as big a group as the K-pop lovers.
You said that working at a university and working with a lot of students in social programs on social responsibility and volunteerism programs, I have a lot of faith in the youth of today, actually, and what they're capable of, in what they can actually do and what they can move if they set their minds to it. And I think that, as you said, a lot of them just need a platform. They need some kind of support system to get them moving and to create the awareness and create that spark. And I think that's what this program aims to do, to create that spark that hopefully will then have a multiplier effect in their own country when they take it back to their own institution and they say, get together with a group and say, hey, let's do something. And then you'll see the real movement happening.
And Putri, you're part of the younger generation, I suppose. You look young.
She's in between.
No, actually, I look young. I think
She's a tweenie.
I think it's important to get the perspective from the younger generation. Like, is it because of the lack of platforms, or do you think that you're more aware? It's just that you don't have like a source for you to go to.
It's actually also a matter of priority, I suppose. For example, the findings is that for ASEAN identity is the lowest. One of the lowest is Malaysia.
Really?
Yes, yes. So one of the highest would be Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia. So that actually translates in all the applications that we get. So the more that they are aware of this program or any other ASEAN level program, then the participation will be higher. So I think we're doing quite well in terms of increasing the awareness, and like Ms. Prabha said, that we're providing the platform with CIMB. At least one of it would be, but then the accessibility of it. The more that we know about it, the more that and youth is about fun, right? If you would make it look fun and not like hardcore job or so
Not
hard
too
to
academic.
do. Yes. So then I think it will draw in the numbers.
We'll talk more about Malaysian youth, because you mentioned a really interesting point about ASEAN identity and how Malaysian youth are not really that aware of ASEAN identity after this song.
Monday Morning Matters
Perspectives from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene.
Welcome back. This is Grace.
And of course, you are with our guest here on Preserving ASEAN Heritage Investment for the Future with Iqbal from CIMB Foundation, Prabha from UKM, of course, Tunku, Putri, Afifah from AsiaEngage. So, continuing back from our discussion about ASEAN identity, if I'm not mistaken, there's this one statistic saying that 60% of Malaysians are not really aware of ASEAN. So
It's really true. Like, if you go out to any universities, even or high school, and then you just pick one student and then just ask, do you know what ASEAN is? They're like, is it Asian or ASEAN? Yeah. It's very common answers that we get from Malaysian students here.
yeah, and I think partly because when we talk about ASEAN, we always think about governments and high level discussion on really complicated issues. So
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't
then-
really translate well into the grassroots or into youth issues. But nowadays, especially Malaysia being the chairman of ASEAN Summit this year, ASEAN, and also with Prime Minister Najib Razak saying that this year's ASEAN is a people-centered ASEAN. So how can, I mean, what are you guys doing, or how can we do to somehow enhance this ASEAN identity among Malaysian youth?
Well, I think in the university, we do have a lot of opportunities for them to participate in things like this. Programs such as these would probably help with building up the ASEAN identity among the youth. Some of the local universities have departments on ASEAN studies. I know for a fact that University of Malaya has a department on ASEAN studies. I do know that the ASEAN University Network itself promotes ASEAN education for selected youth
leaders and students. So, but perhaps what is missing is that they do not know about these things.
We
So
don't have that wow factor.
yeah, right. It doesn't have that wow
Like
factor.
ASEAN celebrity.
Right, yeah. So,
We
but
don't know.
maybe what we then need to do is make ASEAN more relevant to the youth. Don't make it so all about politics or all about governments, but bring it down to their level, something they can appreciate and understand. TV programs nowadays, you have the Asia Food Network Challenge. Why not the ASEAN Food Network Challenge?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and bring in the ASEAN wow factor and bring it down to their levels. I think that'll be a great way of connecting with them. Music, culture, all of this appeal to the youth, and I think these are the ways we need to reach out to them. The arts, performing arts as well.
In fact, there is this TV channel called Go ASEAN, which was just launched, and then if we can see more of this, like Go ASEAN focus on food and travel,
great.
where we can see like perhaps ASEAN fashions, ASEAN like you mentioned about the celebrity, then the youngsters they can definitely relate themselves to all these elements of ASEAN.
For us, I mean, at CIMB, what we do is, we call ourselves the ASEAN Bank. We service ASEAN, we look after the whole region. We have what's called a regional scholarship. These are scholarships for postgraduate studies, and it's only for ASEAN citizens. And this year we awarded 5 scholarships, some to Malaysians, but also to a Thai, a Singaporean, and actually that's it. But the whole thing is they go overseas, they study whatever they want to study, and it's nothing to do with banking, and they come back to serve the ASEAN region. But also I think the sad part for Malaysia is that we forget that one of the founding fathers of ASEAN was our own Tun Razak. We also forget that 20 years after the formation of ASEAN, we set up a sculpture park in Lake Gardens.
She's nearby ISIS Malaysia.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is just below.
I actually
Tunku
stumbled
Negara.
upon it while I was waiting for a friend. I was like, yes, we do have an ASEAN sculpture garden. Nobody
And-
knows about it.
And that sculpture garden, you'll be happy to know, is maintained by CIMB Foundation.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
We've done the cleanup work, the restoration work with DBKL, and you'll soon see signage up that will tell you that it's part of our, give back to the ASEAN community. But I think it's just the lack of interest is something that the government has to rectify, schools have to rectify, because without teaching the young what ASEAN is all about, there's no way the adults
Yeah.
are going to want to play a part in it.
Maybe if I could add, if I didn't know until I was involved in ASEAN level programs that in Thailand they have a special module on ASEAN. So
It's a
again, it
government
translates.
initiative.
Yes. So again, it translates in the increased awareness from Thailand,
Right from school.
and from school and
yeah.
Indonesia as well. So maybe that's what we should do as well. Just maybe a short module on ASEAN and what it's all about and how we can actually contribute to
part,
the
yeah.
ASEAN identity as well.
Just to add things, in fact, we were in Manila early in January, and because we were there, we were part of this ASEAN Youth Summit as well. And what is interesting is the Filipino youth seems to be quite vocal and aware of ASEAN and the issues around Southeast Asia. So it seems like perhaps only Malaysia we are a bit backward when it comes
No,
to
No, we're just very
Because of
lepak.
ASEAN.
Our attitude is very relaxed.
Yeah, but I wouldn't generalize.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be across all Malaysian youth because I know perhaps again it's about opportunities. If they've been involved in programs such as these, if they've been involved in debates, in platforms that they can speak out and develop their ASEAN sense and awareness, I think then you'd find that those people. Those youth members are really aware. It's a matter of spreading that further, reaching out to more youth in Malaysia, I think.
And it'd be good if we could get more students from the other universities into our universities, and then our universities
Yeah.
going out. It'd be great to have interns from other countries working in the different companies in Malaysia and the other way around. But the best thing would be to have an ASEAN lane at all the passports.
Yes,
I was
yes,
just
we-
going to
we-
say
yeah,
that.
In
we
the
just started
immigration
this year.
places,
We
in
just
all the
started this year,
airports,
yeah.
Because it feels very good when
Yeah.
you're out
I
there in
feel
the crowd.
ASEAN.
Wave your ASEAN passport and off you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are very small but significant awareness
Yeah. Yes,
on the
yeah.
existence of ASEAN. And I want to highlight one of the famous banner that CIMB have is the compilation of different ASEAN youth wearing their traditional costume. And I think these are very important factor to show that even though, Southeast Asia is diverse, people have different identity, but actually we all somehow look the same.
We look very much the same because we've all.
I cannot tell the difference between different.
It's one great big archipelago. We've all been sailing to each other's countries for the last thousands of years. We've all been speaking to each other, for so many years. It's only post-colonial periods where we've had to draw the borders. Look at our borders. It's really, how did that happen?
Yes, that's true.
Indonesia, for instance, they're bigger than the United States. They spread across that much surface area. We know our distinct cultures, but look at us closely, and we're all linked. We're all 10 of us are linked.
So it seems like this is something that I think we can take into account. But one thing for sure, when people talk about ASEAN identity, there seems to be much vagueness on what do you mean by identity. I mean, we ourselves Malaysian are confused. What is Malaysian identity is all about? Then you have to talk about ASEAN identity.
I think one of the questions is also, what can ASEAN give us? What's the benefit that we can get from ASEAN? Being a Malaysian is one thing, but then being an ASEAN is another step. So could you elaborate more on that?
Well, if you speak about benefits of being ASEAN, perhaps not, it's not very clear, not very apparent, but I think a lot of organizations, including, what Iqbal was talking about, CIMB just now, things like scholarships, things like opportunities, things like work exchanges, internships. There's lots of opportunity within ASEAN for ASEAN community, for ASEAN people. These are perhaps things which need to be, really advertised more, promoted more, to show that, well, when you're an ASEAN community member, you have all these things open to you, and I mean, something like the ASEAN University Network. They have internship opportunities only open to youth and students from ASEAN, and it's a great place. It's based in Chulalongkorn University, and they do a lot of regional work, and it's amazing work. And not many university students know about that, and I think we need to spread this out more. So I think ASEAN can give back a lot, together with, I mean, the tangible thing is this kind of stuff. The intangible thing is to make one realize that they are a member of a bigger community. There is a lot of cultural diversity out there, which all belongs within one big place called ASEAN, and they are part of this bigger thing. And I think that's a good thing they can take with them wherever they go in their working life, and I think it'll develop them more holistically for the young people.
What we did last year for our CIMB Young ASEAN Leaders Summit was that we set out each group of 5 people, 5 students representing one nation. And they were all from, different countries. The winning country last year was Laos, but they had Laos was represented by a Cambodian, a Filipino, a Thai, a Malaysian, and an Indonesian.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they all had to work together, and they were not necessarily representing their own country. The end result of that was a very high degree of cooperation between the students, and I think at the end of it, great friendships which they've kept up through Facebook and other social media, because they end up going back to their own countries. But what happens during these sessions is that they get to meet other people, other students from other countries. They get to see what their similarities are. They get to see what their differences are. The Cambodians love to travel with their dried fish, something that they have to eat with their food. And they share it. And people try, and the Indonesians bring their crepe and all that kind of stuff. And it's great to see, because these are the small things that you can bring, you can share with each other. And at the end of the day, you realize that actually it's just one big family. ASEAN is something that we should look at as one big happy family. and these are the small things that we as a bank can do, UKM as a university can do to make sure that youth are the ones who actually push this agenda forward.
Glad that you mentioned it, because sometimes we might not be aware, but a lot of the things that we think, oh, this is a Malaysian product, but in reality, because we have been one big family since probably thousands of years ago, a lot of things that is Malaysian could possibly possibly exist in other countries in Southeast Asia. I mean, give example, batik, even food. Nowadays we nowadays we have food wars. Between governments. This is our food.
but that's the similar thing that happened when we had the ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program last year. Some of the participants brought dried food from their countries, and they shared it. And the comments were like, hey, don't we have something like this in Malaysia?
But it's not called tapioca.
But it's not called
Philippines.
So we do have it,
cassava. Cassava. And I mean, I give example belacan. We think that it's a Malaysian thing, but then you can find belacan in the northern side of Southeast Asia. So it shows that I think with greater connectivity or connection among ASEAN members, especially if Malaysian youth get exposed to more wider youth in Southeast Asia, I think that is what part of ASEAN identity is all about. It's about family and it's about friendship, in a sense, because politically we are divided by national borders, but when it comes to value system and when it comes to who we are as people, I think we are almost the same.
We're all durian eaters.
We are all durian eaters and durian eaters.
I think you touched on something very important there, the value system, because the ASEAN values are something very special, I think, and that you find that across all the ASEAN countries, the politeness, the respect for elders, the respect for religion,
for each other,
and for each other. Those values are very, very strong, and I think that's one very strong identifying factor in ASEAN. And that's something we need to make aware of for the young people.
So we will take another one short break. When we return, we'll talk more about the program and who will be speaking, and of course about Malacca.
Okay.
Monday Morning Matters.
Perspectives from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene.
Welcome back. This is Grace.
And of course, you are with our three guests, Iqbal from CIMB Foundation, Prabha from UKM, and of course Tunku Putri from AsiaEngage. So we talk a lot about ASEAN identity, about everything to do with young people, and of course with the event itself, CIMB Young Leaders, Young ASEAN Leaders. But let's talk more about the program itself. Can you share more about the highlight of the program, which is you will feature workshops, you will feature panel discussion. Of course, you invited a lot of key people to give speeches. Maybe you can share with us more what will happen on that day.
The CYAL this time around is going to involve about 50 ASEAN youth leaders. And it covers 2 days of intensive dialogue sessions, workshop sessions, plus site visits. The dialogue sessions and workshop sessions, we've managed to get a rich group of people, internal as well as external to UKM. We have expert practitioners from NGOs and icons within ASEAN. So we have session topics such as towards the ASEAN community, and we are the person who's going to be doing this topic is actually Yang Amat Mulia Tunku Zain Abidin, founding president of Ideas, a young, dynamic young person himself, great sense of humor, and can pitch ideas really well to ASEAN youth. They'll see the relevance of what he's talking
Youth
about.
magnet.
Yeah, youth magnet, exactly. And an amazing speaker.
So that's your wow factor there for you.
One of it.
Wow factor.
Every step of the way is wow.
Yeah. And then we have people like Francesco Volpini, who is an practitioner. He's an expert practitioner. He's been to many places. He used to be the director of the Coordinating Center for International Voluntary Service, based in Paris, UNESCO. He's now with Better World, Korea. He's an expert on World Heritage Sites, and he's a expert on heritage conservation, the know-hows. So he'll be doing Heritage 101. what it's all about, what is heritage conservation, what are the principles
But he
of heritage.
covers like global, not just
He
Southeast
covers
Asia.
global. So he's actually done a lot of work with a lot of World Heritage sites, including ASEAN. He's based in Korea now, so the ASEAN accessibility is closer, but he's always been involved in voluntary work related to heritage sites within in the whole world. And he'll also talk about how youth can be actively involved, what they can do, project management, because the ultimate aim is the people who are involved in this program should go back to their countries and start up a project involving heritage conservation, preservation, awareness, and they need to be able to manage that project. So he'll be discussing it from the point of view of case studies to provide practical on-the-ground examples of how this can be done. So I think that's a wealth of information there that he can then
That'd
share.
be great.
Yeah, and we've also got an expert from within UKM, Dr. Noor Hayati, who's an expert on natural heritage, environment. Environment is one of UKM's top research areas. So we have a lot of experts there, but she's one of those who's an expert on digital documentation, how a heritage story can be preserved through pictures and through publications. Now, this kind of thing would appeal to youth because anything digital nowadays is very in, and we don't want to go down the road of just lecturing and talking about it, but if they can play a role in preserving heritage through some kind of digital media, social media, then that'll be great. So she'll be giving some pointers on that as well. And I'll be conducting a workshop with them on working with local communities. How do you work with communities? Because we can't go into a community assuming that they want intervention. They want us to do something for them. That's not the case. That's usually never the case,
So good engagement is
good engagement.
is the
Yeah, what are
key
the
point.
the principles of engagement? How you can actually work with them and get them on your side. It's a slow process that may involve you being amongst them for quite a while, but I think it will help the young people to learn these principles as well if they want to spread the awareness. So
And I think the main focus here is Malacca. And you also invited someone from Kampung Chetty.
yes, maybe
Tell us more about it. Why Kampung Chetty and what exactly is Chetty?
Chetty,
Someone who likes to talk a lot. Chatty person.
Kampung Chetty. Kampung Chetty is the Indian community. Kampung.
But they're not just any kind of Indian.
Yeah,
right?
they are
Traditionally moneylenders,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
traders and moneylenders.
So we engaged with them last year when we had the program AYBP Heritage Leaders. So we were bringing him again as one of the panelists to share his efforts in fighting the ever increasing demand of demolishing the his kampung Chetty. He even has a committee where they take turns to work with the Malacca Heritage Office to bring tourists to their kampung and to make them aware of their heritage, the Chettiar heritage. So it'll be interesting to have him on the panel alongside Francesco Volpini, as well as academician Dr. Yahya, and it'll be an interesting panel with DurianASEAN as the moderator, if I may add.
It's quite interesting that even for you guys, you are trying to bring in elements of Malaysian heritage in it. But Malacca is one very unique place in Malaysia, I think, where you see pockets of fusion communities, and I think the Chetty community is one of
And
it.
then
The
Baba and Nyonya,
Baba
we'll be
It's
going to
because
Baba
of
and
the,
Nyonya Museum as well.
I think it's the history that has brought about this, where it's as you said, it's a fusion. So you find a lot of the best examples of how the cultures actually can mix and fuse and then manifest as something very nice, very different, and yet very unique, and yet it's part of everyone, And the Chetty community is a great example of that, and so is Baba Nyonya cuisine. The cuisine itself will say a lot about, the Malay, the Chinese parts of it that have fused together that made it so unique.
Well, in Malacca, they are also going to the Royal Press. Maybe Iqbal would like to explain about that further?
The Royal Press is one of CIMB Foundation's beneficiaries. We've supported them so that they can actually showcase something that has actually died in modern Malaysian printing. They still do hand setting for the print works, but the key to the Royal Press is that they have typefaces in the 4 different scripts that we use, which is the Roman script for English, Jawi for Malay, Devanagari for the Tamil script, and they also have Mandarin script. So they are able to print in 4 different languages. And one of the things you're going to see is the T-shirts that we've produced for this trip to Malacca for the students.
Wow,
will have elements of all the typefaces, because that's us, that's Malaysia. So CIMB Foundation, of course, we want to show off what we have. And the Royal Press is a beautiful building in Malacca, where they preserve the tile work, they preserve the drawers, the original wooden drawers, and there's still this Chinese lady who does all the typesetting for Chinese, for Mandarin, by hand. And for those who live in the Klang Valley, who used to ride on the omnibus companies, those little stubby tickets, they were originally printed by the father and grandfather of the Royal Press person whom we work with now. So there's heritage in that as well.
We wouldn't have known this. I think you should be one of the panelists as well, just to describe about Malaysian
They're my
heritage.
beneficiaries.
Very nice. Even if I may add, we did a recce to Malacca, and Encik Rosli, the general manager of the Malacca Heritage Office, he's also aware of Royal Press and all the other heritage there. And then he actually shared a very interesting fact with me. He said, the person who did the typesetting, he can still recall all the news from way back then, and he's still there because he has to memorize and typeset, meaning that you have to sort of, when you do it with typewriters and keyboards, right? So he has to set all the alphabets in line. If you want to spell durian, for example, so you have to put DurianASEAN is da. So he will remember all these news-worthy things from way back then. That's so interesting.
That's very interesting. I think young people, especially the ASEAN young leaders, can get more facts and information from this
It'll
particular
be an
event.
amazing and benefiting trip.
What's good about taking them to Malacca is the fact that whilst everything in Malacca is so different, Malacca people all claim it as theirs, regardless of which kampong or which cultural background they come from. They all claim it as theirs. Baba Nyonya food, not Singapore, not Penang, Malacca. Portuguese food, not Goa, not Macau, Malacca. Portuguese tarts.
Yes.
I mean,
egg
everyone
tarts.
claims it. They all claim it as theirs. They're not about to let go of it. So that's good, because as different as they are, the first and foremost is they're Malaccans.
Yeah, I think we need to have that Malacca effect for the whole of Malaysia and Southeast Asia.
Yes.
Anyway, this is the end of our show, but I just want to highlight that the event will be on April 21st to 22nd at IDFR.
Yes, Institute for Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, very nicely sponsored by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Malaysia.
Thank you, Mofa.
Thank you very much, Mofa.
So anyway, thank you for coming to the studio and sharing with us.
Thank you so much for having
Thanks,
us.
Arlene. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Arlene and Grace.